Hello.
Hello.
I don't know if Uncle Sam wants you, but
That's
Josh
an old
and
ad.
Josh and JB
Yes.
are glad you're here with us. We
Listening,
want
watching.
you. We want to hang out with you. 30, 40 minutes.
It's great.
Whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. We'll see.
We are in season 4 of Radiant Reflections, the podcast of Radiant Life Church, and we are journeying together through the book Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. As we near the end of that, well, we're not nearing the end of it, but as we get there,
Yes.
one of the practical outputs that we hope for is that you will begin to create a rule of life, which isn't a write it in stone, set it and forget it for the rest of forever. Amen. As you ended the last episode, you said this is something that you revisit and as necessary.
I think there are some things that are in stone.
Modify. Well, right. But it's not like, if I decide this now, I have to do this forever and ever.
Right.
Maybe some components of it, but
I mean, prayer, scripture reading, Sabbath, stone. That's in stone. How you do those things. Yeah. I'm going to push back a little bit, Josh. You said that we hope that the listeners and viewers will begin the process of developing. This podcast is so long. This season is going to be so long. This book is so great. We hope that you will have already be like to version 2.0 of your rule of life.
It doesn't get into like all of the nitty gritty of the rule of life. Now, I mean, it's very likely people have read ahead.
Yes.
I mean, so maybe they are.
Yes, because they don't know how much we're reading every week.
Right. I mean, what, were you averaging maybe 3 pages?
We didn't do so hot. I mean, we did like 8 pages last time.
Oh, hey, that's all right. Well, hey, we're jumping in. We're on page 128. And Comer suggests that Jesus' ministry had 3 basic rhythms, which were 1, making space for the gospel, 2, preaching the gospel, and 3, demonstrating the gospel. And we're going to start this episode, and maybe we'll get all the way through it. We'll see. We
don't have any coffee this episode, so that saves 75 minutes probably. All we have, you can see in my cup here, is just water. It's like brownish, brackish water because I had coffee in this cup. I just filled it with water. I'm just drinking it.
I'm drinking hot electrolytes. I've discovered that I really like the
hot.
Yeah, the Element brand. I don't have that right now. I have some other.
Those are expensive.
Which is why I don't have them right now. But
they're really good.
But I was at like the Sunrise, that discount store north of Sturgis.
Okay.
And they had some random electrolyte powders. I didn't even look at the ingredients. Ignorance is bliss. But I've like those electrolyte powders in hot water.
I've never had it hot. I drink an electrolyte mix every morning. It's the first thing that goes into my body. I make it the night before and set it on the bathroom counter. And I wake up, I go and I grab that. I take it down. I take 2 bits of medicine that are my morning medicine, and then I have that before I have coffee.
Which I told you I was listening to that Hoffman podcast. Did I tell you that?
Hoffman,
James Hoffman.
Oh yeah.
And he talks about that. How like you should actually like wake up. You do within 90 minutes should be electrolytes or something. Yes. Not coffee.
Yes. Wait 90 minutes.
Wait that hour and a half.
It's because of the adenosine. Did you talk about the adenosine?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to talk a little bit about coffee, folks. Scratch that. Here we go.
35 minutes later.
So you want me to tell about it? Okay,
go for it.
In your body, right? And there are these molecules, elements. I don't know what they are. It's called adenosine. So adenosine is what actually makes you sleepy. It makes you fatigued. It makes you tired.
Is it adenosine or adenosine?
Adenosine, something like that. I don't know. One of those 2. So generally what happens is as you wake up, grab onto these things and they dissolve that molecule in your body, which wakes you up and you don't have a crash later on. So what happens is if you wake up right away, you don't give your body the chance to take that adenosine, whatever, go to that receptor and have that dissolve. What happens is a caffeine molecule, it's very similar to adenosine, goes into that receptor in its place. So you get this quick boost, but then in the afternoon, that adenosine's still in your body. It comes back and you get the afternoon crash. So waiting 90 minutes.
Yeah, because he's saying like caffeine doesn't actually give you, blocks these receptors.
Yes.
It's kind of a you don't really know that you're
right. Like ibuprofen, it doesn't actually do anything for pain. It blocks your ability to feel the pain.
Like, I don't feel it anymore, so this is good.
Yeah.
So well, look at that. We
coffee
snuck
talk,
in a little coffee talk.
Yeah. But at any rate, the making space for the gospel, when we say we're talking about the good news of Jesus, making space for the gospel, preaching the gospel, demonstrating the gospel. So rhythm number 1 on page 128, Josh, is making space for the gospel,
i.e. hospitality,
which John Mark talked about not last, but the year before.
Expo 2020.
2 or 3. It would have been 3.
Expo 2023.
Yes, it was because 24 we went to
we just
in March.
Yep.
So 23, him and Christine Kane talked about this component.
Yeah,
of
they kind of
hospitality.
they're so dovetailed together.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about this, Josh.
So hospitality, right?
You're so good at this. You and Nicole are so good at this.
I think Nicole is so good at this.
Well, which means you are too, because you're connected.
Well, no, I mean, hospitality is something that we don't always think about often. This would, first century, this is like a cultural thing. Yeah. First century, hospitality was the norm. The
strangers.
The amount. So don't quote me on this because it's been going on a year since we taught on this. So the first 2 years we ran Radiant Institute, we taught on spiritual disciplines, practices. What we teach on is hospitality. If I remember right, which I might not.
Okay.
The word that we translate as hospitality is xenophilius, something like that.
Okay.
Which is to like, xeno is different. This is where we get like xenophobia. And philia, that's love. This is like of even strangers.
Yes.
Right. Which is so like we usually think of, oh, well, I'll be hospitable.
I love people who vote like me.
To the people that I know and I love and I like.
Yes.
Culturally.
Yes.
Dude, if you're first century, Middle East kind of a thing, and I think hospitality is still in some of these areas, even still today. If I'm walking through town and you see me, like, oh no, come in, like have food, have have coffee, have whatever, and you're going to invite me in because hospitality is so important. We're like, I'm locking my gate. I'm, it's Halloween. We're shutting off the lights. Don't want nobody coming to my door. Oh, the Jehovah's Witnesses coming around. Quick, kids, pretend we're not home.
Architecture has changed. Whole ways that communities and neighborhoods have been built, structured, have changed because of the loss of hospitality.
Was it Kane or Comer at Expo and they talked about the shift?
Maybe this porch.
From the front porch.
That's architecturally.
Yeah.
It used to be, that the backyard was open and there was collective. You were connected to other neighbors. Most people spent time on their front porch talking with. I'll tell you, he used to produce this podcast, and he's a producer at my company, his productions, Jameson Schaefer.
Oh yeah.
God's called this guy, him and his wife, to live in a very rough part of Detroit. They feel called to live in this neighborhood. And he talks about this front porch sort of culture where neighborhood they come over and they hang out with him and his wife and they give him treats and feed them and the neighbors across the street are, there's just a different sort of connection. Now what do? We come into our neighborhoods with a button, we open our garage doors, we pull in quietly, we close that garage door behind us, we unpack our stuff, we go in backyard that's fenced 7 feet high, so no neighbors can even see over, all they can do is smell your barbecue. They don't get to be a part of it. Everything has changed. I love the connection of hospitality with the gospel. Josh, I think one of the great examples that I know was with our now former youth director, Rasika. When Rasika was not married to Chance Stewart, she's now Mrs. Chance Stewart. I know it was like once a week. You guys opened, and Rasika would come and she would share a meal as a single gal in our church, younger gal with not older, but an older couple who could give an example. You know what I mean? Could give example. Nicole could be an example of what it means to be a godly wife and a godly example of what it means to be a godly father and husband, and you in how you manage your home and how you all those things. And I remember seeing that and thinking, oh man, that's a really beautiful example of the gospel. Now she's not a stranger. She's a friend.
No, but I mean, that was definitely one of those things that I think deepened the friendship, because especially, during COVID, during lockdown, because so she'd come over on Sundays, and we're, at the time, we were recording services on Tuesday nights.
It was wild.
We're streaming it. I'm sitting by the computer to interact with everybody on Facebook, but like she's there with Nicole and the kids. So we're all sitting in the living room watching church.
Family.
And my kids call her Aunt Sika, and she's
it's cool.
She's part of the family.
129. I love what it's just so practical. The second and third sentence of the page 129. How do we make space for God in such an emotionally loaded atmosphere? The same way he did, by eating and drinking. I can't be the guy with the sandwich board and a bullhorn on the corner. Maybe you shouldn't be anyways, but whatever. Or the guy knocking on people's doors, giving out tracts. But, I think we need to talk about Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Jennings.
Yeah, he's just done a phenomenal job, right? He felt like he had a heart.
He's a member of Radio Life Church.
The people on just say, I'm going to invite him over for a meal. And
he's retrofitted his garage,
I think, to create more space for
make a space, and he does this simple. It's like hot dogs, right?
Well, I think the first one that he did like pancakes and sausage links.
Pretty affordable.
You buy like what you just
or a box of
warm
mix
stuff up. I mean, he's not like a sous chef somewhere. Like he's just warming this stuff up and creating space for people to sit down together and eat it.
Yep.
And it's been a really cool thing to see.
And we've recently done a pretty cool initiative here at Radiant Life called 100 Tables, where you signed up young in the faith. We called this Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And it was, you were either the host family or you were a guest family. And the host family obviously was doing the cooking. The guest family was
you bring a side dish kind of thing.
carry-in style, and it was really cool. We had several families come to our. I think it was really a fun thing. But again, this is a little different than what JMC's talking about, because these are all like people I go to church with.
But
like I know them.
But this is laying the ground. The way that we're running 100 Tables is trying to lay the groundwork. Because here's the reality. Yes, these are other people from your church. Sitting at the table, even though you're part of the same church family, you're strangers.
Yes.
You've never interacted with this person before in your life.
How'd you get married?
Now you're getting to know somebody on a deeper level. Ideally, as we continue to lean into this, it becomes more of like a Jeff. Like, hey, you've gotten used to having people over. You've gotten used to going and being part of something with people you don't even know who you're going to hang out with,
right?
Let alone whether or not you knew them or not,
right?
Can you invite the people on your block?
Yeah.
Invite them into this space and do a dinner, once a month, once a quarter, once, whatever. And just start to those connections. So
absolutely.
Middle of that really last full paragraph, it says meals bring people together.
I love it, Josh. That's a quote from Mary Douglas, anthropologist.
We are in sync. But they also keep people apart. And they go into the the pre-civil rights, the segregation and different things like that. And I think some of the significance of that is you were not allowing people to truly be. I mean, it's the opposite. I mean, that's more of like that xenophobia, not the because in hospitality, even if you are different, even if you are a stranger, I love you, I welcome you in.
Right.
Not, oh, you're different, stay out of here.
Right.
So, I mean, there have been places and times where, we've gone exactly the opposite, wrong.
There are places and times. I mean, it's not as severe, obviously, as it was pre-civil rights, but there remains very cliquish sort of.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're definitely like birds of a feather flock together. Like we find people that are like us and we huddle together. So I think it has to be an intentional. Of hospitality as a practice, the beauty of engaging in a model, kind of like what Jeff is doing, is I'm inviting everybody on my street, and not everybody on my street might be like me, but I'm choosing to step into this as a practice, as a discipline, as a way to say, this is something Jesus modeled.
Josh,
how do I do that?
What's interesting, a former pastor friend of mine, his name's Eric. He was in Eagle or Jimson, Colorado, and now he's in Arkansas. But he shared with me part of his rule of life, and one of the pieces on his rule of life that really is a hospitality piece. Have one family over from church, and he's starting there. Maybe he'll go to other neighbors, but one family per month from church, have them over. My wife and I used to have that exact same discipline, that same rule of life, that same practice where once a month. And you know what? We just got busy. And we just got, too busy, honestly, to make time for this important discipline. Anything else on 120 or 131?
You bounced it.
Or sorry, 129 is what I meant to say. 130 now.
No, I mean, he gets into kind of the piece that we were talking about.
That third paragraph there, one theologian wrote, Jesus got himself crucified by the way he ate. He ate with all the wrong people, turncoats like Zacchaeus, prostitutes, Gentiles, the unclean, danger, danger. He was accused of being a glutton and a drunkard and a friend of and sinners. That was not a compliment. If someone's calling you a glutton or a wine bibber or a drunkard, that means you're probably eating and drinking. Like you're enjoying food and drink with other people.
Well, and as is in some ways true now, like you are who you hang out with, kind of a thing. We've talked about that in a negative sense. Yeah. And that you do have to be wise in who you surround yourself with. And again, if your closest people are people that are not following, you're gonna have a hard road.
Yeah.
But we also see that Jesus regularly modeled interaction with people who were very different from him.
Yeah.
And we would do well to incorporate that too. And again, a lot of the people Jesus hung out with, there have been times when those people would probably be asked to leave the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's who Jesus went and hung out with.
Yeah.
So,
but his hanging out with them wasn't just to hang out with them.
No.
Right.
No.
It was intentional.
It communicates something very significant.
Yes.
So, I mean, as he this place with these individuals, he's saying, hey, there is an invitation here to be part of him. It's not that just, hey, keep on being a drunkard or a prostitute.
No, it was go and sin no more.
I mean, again, you see the shift they reference in here, Zacchaeus, right? Zacchaeus, as far as without being instructed by Jesus, he's like, you know what? I'm going to pay back everybody 4 times what I ripped off. I'm going to
just because of an experience with a meal with Jesus that impacted him in some way. I mean, just the presence of Jesus changed him. Over on 131 paragraph, I see you've got some of it highlighted, Josh. The practice of eating and drinking with people far from God is what the New Testament writers call hospitality. The word is philoxenia, which you brought.
I said it backwards.
Yeah.
So
in Greek, and it's a compound word. Philo means love, and xenos means or guest, meaning hospitality is the opposite of xenophobia. Exactly what you said, Josh. It's the love of the stranger, not the hate or fear of the quote unquote other. It's the act of welcoming the outsider in, and in doing so, turning guests into neighbors and neighbors family in God. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you have a stranger or one of your neighbors over for food or drink or whatever it is, that they are automatically going to come into the family of God. It could be a long road, and it might never happen, but it doesn't change our.
We have to be mindful that in a sense, we go into these interactions with an agenda.
Yes.
Again, that has negative connotations sometimes, but it doesn't mean that we go into this and say, I'm having my neighbor over for dinner. I'm going to make sure that I lay out the plan of salvation.
Yeah.
And
John Mark talked about that at
do these things, like might be months and months or years and years of building a relationship with somebody, of consistently showing up before you see any discernible fruit.
Yeah. And it's not God. It's not our job always.
Results aren't our responsibility.
faithful.
Nope.
What else on 131, Josh? Anything else sticking out to you?
No, I think we're good. We can flip it.
132. I like that top sentence of the second paragraph. Hospitality is both a rhythm we calendar into our rule of life, of being in the world, a heart posture toward others. When we act like God, we feel like God to share his joy.
And I think that's an important part. I think both of those are really important. You know, it being a way of being in the world, right? This really is that I can demonstrate hospitality when I go to Meijer and I'm going through the checkout.
Yeah.
That's why I get a little bit like pharisaical about like,
the self-checkout.
You don't do self-checkout.
I know.
Now, and you know what? I have to confess, there have been times, like if I'm out of time, I do self-checkout. And I've had church people catch me. And it's like, hey, I thought, it's like, you know what? I hear that.
I'm a person too.
I say, like, my wife has dinner cooking and this is the last ingredient. And I need to get home.
It'll burn.
Yeah. But for the most part, like, this is an opportunity to interact with somebody, to demonstrate hospitality. Most of us ignore those people all the time. Like, hey, they're just there to do a job. Just, hey, give me
rather than look them in the eye.
Give me my groceries and get me out of here as quick as you possibly can.
I love this whole content about radical, ordinary hospitality from Rosaria Butterfield on the bottom of 132. Listen to this. Listeners, viewers, listen to these words. It comes with a house key.
I have that book. I haven't read it yet.
From Rosaria?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that next paragraph on 133 too. There's no better place to get to know someone than over a meal. No better place to dialogue and even disagree in love. Because of that, to preach the gospel, the next rhythm, than around a table with bread and wine. I'm no skilled evangelist. The next rhythm is a weakness in my discipleship, not a strength. But I can tell you this, after living in one of the most secular cities in the world, all of the best conversations, listen to these superlatives, I've ever had from God have been around my table. All of them. I love I don't even know where it came from, but the idea of fridge rights. Have you heard that? Like, for instance, certain people come over to your house and, you know, they know where the bathroom is. Oh. They know. And they don't come and they don't say, hey, could I have a PB&J sandwich or whatever? Like, they just go. It's as if.
No, that's always like I don't know that I've ever heard it use that, the term fridge rights, but that is one of those things. Like, I always count when somebody has been to my house enough, like, they don't have to ask me, oh, where are the cups? Where's the silverware? Where's it? Like,
right. They know the drawers.
They know where stuff is.
Yeah.
And they are comfortable enough to go into the fridge and
help themselves,
grab a soda or pour some water out of the pitcher, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Maybe that's a challenge, Josh, coming out of that rhythm number one. Listeners, viewers, let's just make a challenge right now. Josh got one more thing to share, but let's make this challenge right now. And Josh, let's challenge each other right now.
Okay. What do we challenge?
Let's do it. We're going to do it live. Recorded.
Ish. Yeah.
Take a step. People over for food. Have some people over. And maybe let's take it a step further. I'm not going to invite Josh and Nicole over for food. I'd love to have them, but I know them. I love them. And they know me. They love me. And so we would have a great time probably. It'd be great.
Stretch the boundaries of the...
Yeah.
Here's the beauty. He says this, the beauty of Jesus' method is it's something you're already doing. You already eat meals. All you have to do is repurpose a few of them. All right? And then second, anyone can do this. Again, this doesn't have to be some, how many Michelin, I don't know, restaurant language.
Yeah. Unless you're Kinsey, who's a phenomenal cook. He's so good. He's really good at hospitality too.
He is. Yeah, and he makes really good food.
He does make good food.
So,
yeah. Yep. All right, 134. This is rhythm number 2, preaching the gospel. Josh, what's one you're on?
Anything standing out? I don't have anything on 134. I bounced over to. We could have saved money and just bought one copy of this book.
I think we could have. Go ahead and read that top.
In our generation, the primary problem, this is top of 135, the primary problem with evangelism isn't that we're doing and low-grade bigotry. It's that we're not doing it at all.
But it's also that we're doing it with bullhorns and bigotry.
It's just changed. Sometimes the bullhorn comes in the form of social media. Like I'm gonna convince this person
Blast.
by yelling at them in all caps on their Facebook post that I think is
right.
I'm gonna let them know that.
Yep. And we just came out of an election season that was like toxic. I don't know, though. It didn't feel as toxic as I thought it was going to be. And maybe it's just because I abstained from all that bullcrap. Pardon my French.
We'll see as like inauguration and everything if stuff ramps up a little bit. But I would agree. It felt like there was some like of the vitriol and everything leading up to, but then like immediately after, it felt like things kind of like just
fell off.
Go okay.
This is what it is. We're just gonna else, Josh, on 135.
Well, I mean, so he gives some stats from Barna right there. 94% polled said the best thing that could ever happen to someone is for them to come to know Jesus. But about half of them also said it's wrong to share your personal beliefs.
What?
I want to know how does that happen?
Can we say?
I mean, we are
truth?
we're walking contradictions. Like we're.
But what does that stat actually mean?
Paradoxes within paradoxes. It means that most of the people he polled probably don't actually believe it.
No, they can't believe it.
Which,
they cannot believe the gospel.
If you look at other statistics, I mean, you've got a lot of cultural Christians that they grab the title, but it doesn't actually have any real influence on the way that they live their lives.
Because if you believe the gospel, you would understand the imperative. You would understand the imperative of like, okay, and I know that's something I forget from, time to time. It's like, I forget, there's eternity. There's separate in heaven. Like, there's more.
No, I mean, I love, and he's a wizard with some of these like just key thoughts down towards the bottom, unless you had something else.
Same. Oh, good. Read those.
He says, everyone is preaching a gospel. The question
quote unquote.
But the question is not, are you preaching the gospel? It's what gospel are you preaching? Like we all.
Is it the gospel of politics?
We all go out and we promote or represent something. I've had, over the years, not a lot, but I've had a couple of conversations kind of miffed that we have a cafe and every now and then we'll have like swag, which is the wrong term for it because pretty sure swag stands for stuff we all get and not a. I don't know. But anyways, like, I mean, right now I'm wearing a jacket.
Yeah.
Right. And there are people that are like, well, that's wrong. Like you shouldn't be putting your church name. I was like, you know what? And what I've said was, I said, man, like, you're wearing like a Nike shirt. Like, right. Do you even know what Nike stands for?
It's a Greek god.
It is a Greek goddess. For the Greek goddess Nike was the goddess of victory.
Yes.
But do you know what, as a company, what they stand for? Are you behind everything that they stand for?
Right.
How
Amish are you?
Whether or not you do, you are promoting their values and their ideals by buying their gear.
Yes.
So
there is a level of responsibility that we do need to pay attention to. I'm not going to personally send money to Planned Parenthood. I'm not going to do that. They do offer services for female health. I know, and good, meaningful, needful services, but the bulk of their money does not go to those things, right? The bulk of their money goes to end life. So I'm not going to say I'm responsible. I'm not going to support that. There is a level. I have this conversation. I have a family member particularly where we have this conversation often. It's like, how far do you go with that? And I think you go as far as the Spirit leads you. So that's in conversation with this family member. I've said, man, if the Spirit's leading you to boycott that store or that brand, man, let God lead you. Do what God's telling you to do.
I think we still like.
But we can't say it's for everyone.
This is one of the problems. Like over the years, like the number of times, like, oh, boycott, whatever, Target or whatever, because they don't say Merry Christmas. I'm like, what?
Right.
Right. I don't know. Whatever. If that's your personal conviction, cool. Live into
Go
that.
with God.
I mean, Paul talks about those matters
And you need to be obedient to what he tells you.
Don't send out, a worldwide, promotion that we should all boycott this place.
A chain letter. If you love Jesus,
you'll send this to 10 people.
And you can never shop at this place. Yeah, I just think that there's a lot of those things that are very personal and be obedient to what the Lord says to them. But yeah, just laying that on everyone, it can be a form of manipulation.
Well, and because it's a really deep rabbit hole, right? If you want to go down, if you want to go down the route of like, okay, hey, I'm never going to buy any connection to whatever, anything bad.
You're going to be naked, cold, and living in the woods.
Good luck. No.
Because all of it's evil. There's so much bad out there. Definitely. Any rate. 136. Everyone is preaching a gospel.
There you go.
Apprentices of Jesus are those who preach gospel. So that entire conversation was to say that there are different kinds of gospel. There's different, Paul challenged Peter in the book of Galatians, or he challenged the Galatians, how have you returned to so quickly returned to another gospel, to a truth that was not the capital THE gospel. So there's all sorts of varieties and brands. I call it, that's what I call Protestants for the most part. It's Baskin Robbins 50,000 varieties. That's what denominationalism is. Denominationalism is and of the gospel. That's what a denomination is.
And that's why
I digress.
No, but I do think there's some truth there. But yeah, but what are we? I mean, and the beauty is, I think within most, although some of them are stepping away from Orthodox. Like if you have a denomination and at the core they are teaching the Orthodox gospel, hey, at the core we are. It's still in unity there. Versus, I think there are some other things that we, kind of soapboxes that we get on, issues that we champion.
We connect them.
And those become a gospel thing. Sometimes within church world, we make things a gospel issue. That
Talk more about that. We co-opt.
Aren't. Or we don't make things a gospel issue that should be. The ditches on either side are
it's almost
really
like it's
dangerous.
a narrow road.
You know what? I think
it's a narrow path.
That's a brilliant metaphor, JB.
I wish I thought of it. Anything else on 136?
Just the middle of the page. You didn't just read that, did you?
No, I read just above it though.
Preach the gospel. All we mean is to tell people about Jesus. Announce the good news of Jesus and the availability of life with him in the kingdom of God.
Yeah. And again, this is what all people do. Next page or next sentence. They talk about what they love most: fashion, music, sports, a new TV series. Love Jesus. So we talk about Jesus. That should be the central part of our lives. Jesus should be the very center. And if he's not central, Josh, this was one of the ways, almost 10 years ago now, where I started to recognize that I was to another gospel, a gospel that wasn't centered on Jesus, because I wasn't talking about Jesus. I wasn't seeing people come to Jesus. I wasn't seeing lives transformed, which is what happens in God's kingdom here on earth, right? That was one of the barometers that helped me to, I do love Jesus, but I'm not talking about him. I'm not seeing other people come to him. So I started to get a little bit, the Spirit started to agitate me, and I started to become agitated. I started to lose peace, and I started to question a lot of things. And I continue to do that every day. I have tons on 137. What about you?
Jump in. There were a couple of paragraphs. I just bracketed.
I just feel like brackets probably a better way to save highlighters. This is a whole quote here, guys, on 137. As a reaction against an unsophisticated, manipulative, and at times kind of preaching that often left people feeling degraded and demeaned, many of us have lost our sense of witness entirely. So the pendulum swung the other way, right? Quote again, but it is core to our faith and essential to our discipleship that we reach out to others with the good news. But how do we announce the good news in a culture that is increasingly hostile to it? Is it preaching on the street, or passing out tracts that look like $100 bills, or an IG story drip feed, or an apologetics debate online, or giving out C.S. Lewis books to your coworkers and praying you don't? Possibly. But what if it could look more like cooking a meal for your neighbor, or gently offering a prophetic word to a friend, or inviting your coworker along to Alpha, or an act of quiet service in your city? And I just, it's so deeply with me. I think that the gospel is so simple. I mean, my favorite scene of The Chosen.
I think I know where you're going with this.
My favorite scene of The Chosen is one of them, I should say, but one of my really favorite ones is the woman at the well. Is sitting at the well, and the woman is coming. She's a Samaritan woman, and she's just doing this daily task. Like, she's just getting water. It was her responsibility. Like, he met her in this normal kind of thing, and he's like, hey, can you just give me a drink of water? And a whole thing unfurled. A whole thing unfurled, and a life was changed. Just go in such simple ways to share the gospel. Is it as simple as just mowing the neighbor's grass, like acts of service? I don't know. What, anything else on 137? You're already 138.
No, because I'm jumping over because I figured maybe we cruise through these 5 best practices. And
I love it. We up to rhythm 3.
Episode. So,
number 1.
Right here he says these are the he wants to offer 5 best practices for preaching the gospel in our secular culture. So the first one we've already talked about is offer hospitality.
Do it. Listener, viewer, do it. Okay.
Invite somebody over. Number 2, find where God is already working and join him. What do you got on that one there, JB?
That entire couple of paragraphs under heading 2 there. We often start with the assumption that because someone isn't a disciple of Jesus, God isn't at work in their life. I want to pause right there. This is probably particularly in spiritual direction. God is always at work. The junkie you see on the street with a needle hanging out of his arm, God is at work in that person's life. It may not look like the way that God is at work in your life, but God is ruthlessly always pursuing. As long as there's breath in our lungs, there's this ravenous pursuit of the Spirit for God's people and all creatures of God. Jesus is pursuing them. And so sometimes we just assume that God's not at work. But what if we started, now quote again, this isn't my thinking here. This is the book. But what if we started with the opposite assumption? That God is all present. He's full of love and drawn to sinners. That he's likely already at work in their life, gently inviting them in. In this paradigm, our job is just signs of the ever-present God. And when we see them, and we will join in, this is the definition of what spiritual direction is. A spiritual director is a person, a man or woman of God, who literally just looks for the work of God in another person's life and just helps them see it. That's it. There's no commanding. There's no telling, hey, no, it's like, Josh, man, I heard you say this, this, and this. I see God working here, here, and here. And you listen and you say, oh, I just thought I was just having Rasika over for dinner. But I see the work of God. I actually see the presence of God. I never thought of that. That's all a spiritual director does. We're all intended to function. Maybe not as trained or certified spiritual directors, but we are all to be spiritually directing even the unbelievers towards God, towards Jesus.
No, that's good.
What else?
Number 3, bear witness. That second paragraph. A witness is someone who sees or experiences something others to know about it. So this is that, hey, I've experienced this. I'm going to go and tell other people about it. I do like that important line in the next paragraph. We're witnesses, not salespeople.
Talk about that.
Our job is not to with the right technique, but simply to bear witness to our life with Jesus. And I think this is part of what goes against that, that false belief that we have to reach some level of expertise to be able to talk adequately about Jesus. When in reality, like if Jesus, you talk about that. Like you're
can't
gonna tell
help it.
people. Yeah, you're going to tell people about what you've witnessed, what you have experienced, what you've
Yes.
seen, what you've heard.
Josh, I have a saying.
And that's just going to overflow.
I say this because I'll have people, listeners, viewers, some of you know I've had a life and conversion, but I'll have people who will ask me, hey, will you come and share your conversion story? And I say the same thing every time. I'd be dead for any other reason. God would have just let me die in my sin. But to bear witness of that darkness that I was in, and his good hand of grace and for me, his faithfulness just dug me out of a pit. He would have just let me die if it were not for that reason. So the witness in the story is the reason that God brought you into the light. It's the reason, because he wants to use your story, your context, gender, job, all that stuff. He wants to use who you are to tell others, because there's a person or persons out there who your story will connect with in such profound ways. No one else on earth but you. Listener, viewer, no one else but you has the ability to reach those persons. So be faithful to. You've got some of the same stuff, Josh. We just need to read that on 139.
Yeah, some will be attracted to the gospel, others repulsed. That's okay. We're not responsible for outcomes any more than a witness is responsible for the ruling in a trial. People have free will.
Yep.
Which is a good. He says our job isn't to save people. It's to say with the Apostle John, we have seen and bear witness and declare to you that the life was manifested.
Beautiful, beautiful. Page 140. I like this.
See, I figured you'd speak into this because
John Wimber, number 4. Well, do the stuff. Okay, so when John Wimber would talk about, it was the movement of the Spirit. And I find it interesting, back to the conversation about theosis. This is the real contention of Eastern Orthodox brothers and sisters. They will say to us, show me your saints. Faith expression is X, Y, Z, whatever. Where's the fruit? Where are the Mother Teresas of your faith? And I think we have them. I think
we do. We just take a little bit of issue with the way that
we may not
is.
categorize them in the same ways, but doing this stuff means there are very, very powerful times where God says to you, I think that Josh's right shoulder is bothering him, and I think I'm calling you to go and lay a hand on that shoulder, pray a prayer of faith, and extend the gift of healing to that person. So, and what now, we could camp here for a little bit. We won't too long. This is actually the strongest growth sector in globally in the faith right now, is charismatic churches where the sign gifts, where the stuff gifts, point number 4, where the gospel is actually got some. It's not just me like, oh yeah, you broke God's commands, he sent his son and he died for you, and if you believe in that and receive atonement, then you're going to go to heaven. It's like a lightning bolt. Hey, on your way to work, this happened. A word of knowledge that is just is shocking. So the doing this stuff is important. We need to be open to the voice of the Holy Spirit and his gifting to do this stuff, because the convincing signs and wonders, those are also the greater things that Jesus promised. Yeah.
No, that's good.
What else? Number 5.
Number 5, live a beautiful life. The Apostle Peter says, live such good lives that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us.
Into the next page. The idea is to live you have it. Read it, Josh.
All right. The idea is to live a radiant, I like that he works that in there, and compelling life, not hidden away in a Christian utopia right in the thick of the pagans. So, I mean, again, this isn't that let's go cloister ourselves away, live in a monastery kind of a thing, and never talk to.
Was the problem with monasticism. And one of my first experiences here at Radiant Life was when Tim Elmore was the speaker, and he had this whole section about. He talked about the Christian pogrom. And it was this concept of societal and cultural shift in evangelicalism, where rather than being among art, culture, music, the world, the pagans, for lack of a better term, cloistered ourselves in pogroms. We made little walled cities and little, I still have 2 kids at home that are going through homeschooling. Homeschooling was a cultural reaction and a way to cloister Christians from the public sector. And now, again, all my kids have been homeschooled. They will remain homeschooled for a variety of reasons. But initially, it was a fear. It was a fear. So rather than if you've got a problem with drinking, your mission field is not the local bar. It's not, okay? But if you, maybe it is, maybe it is. I don't know. What else there, Josh? Do not, bottom there of 141. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just do this one, that third paragraph, the second half. What to us is normal, resting, engaging in emotionally healthy relationships, in conversations, sharing our possessions, living below our means, serving the poor is increasingly alien to the watching world. But these are things that he would say, these are some of the markers of that beautiful life.
Yeah.
So what did you
read that next sentence?
Do not underestimate the raw power of simply practicing the way of Jesus in community.
The next Willard quote on 141 into 142, I think, is timeless. There is a special evangelistic work to be done, of course, and there are special callings to it. But if those in the churches really are enjoying fullness of life, evangelism will be unstoppable and largely automatic. The local assembly, for its part, can then become an academy where people throng from the surrounding community to learn how to live. It will be a school of life, or an institute. For a disciple is but a pupil, a student, where all life seen in the New Testament records are practiced and mastered under those who have themselves mastered them through practice. Only by taking this as our immediate goal can we intend to carry out the Great Commission. Beautiful.
No,
what else?
Good.
I see you got something there.
Yeah, that second to last paragraph says, you see, it's easy for a lot of us, and I'm writing to myself here, to kind of fudge this part of our apprenticeship to Jesus. I'm down for formation, emotional health, contemplative prayer, sign me up. But preaching the gospel, I think I'll just mow my neighbor's lawn.
That's the example I gave earlier.
And hope Jesus rose from the dead. But this is where, this is removed by several weeks at this point, but that idea in the message I taught, well, as of this recording yesterday, how you need to be that visual. Hey, mow the lawn. Do that.
Yeah.
But also be willing to step into that place of conversation. And as Holy Spirit leads and gives you opportunity, actually speak to them about Jesus raising from the dead. And the truths of what
preach
Jesus
the gospel.
Came to do. Yeah, actually preach the gospel.
Yeah, 142 into 143, same premise there, Josh. There is a kind of spirit universe. To possess God, we must give him away. As the missionary Frank Laubach said it, I must talk about God or I cannot keep him in my mind. I must give him away in order to have him. Otherwise, our faith will devolve to a private, individualized coping therapy, and our spirituality will wither. If you want more of God, give him away. Oh, this book is good.
Well, this has been episode
17
of
Season
4 Radiant Reflections.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us for these 49-ish minutes.
Yes.
We appreciate it. As always, we encourage you, rate, subscribe, throw a link to this on your social media platform of choice. Not because we're just a couple of good-looking dudes. We are. We're a couple of good-looking dudes.
There's two people in the world that think that, and depending on the day. One's name is Nicole, and the other's name is Lisa. Everyone else would not agree with what you just said.
So we're just... but no, if this is beneficial to you, if this helps you lean in a little bit to what Comer writes in this book, and it's giving you some insight into how you can live your life, begin creating that rule of life that we've talked about now in every episode. Awesome. Share it with the people that are in you. That would be really good. So we'll keep going next time. When we come back together for episode 18.
Will jump in episode 18, the third rhythm, demonstrating the gospel, which I think will be the mowing the grass kind of conversation.
Okay.
So, sweet. Hey, God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.